How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Keeping busy. Is that your
Yeah.
gym or is that your house?
I'm at Movement.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate
My
you
uh
joining me.
my kids are in bed, so I have a tendency to project. So
I got you. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining me. As I told you, most recently I've been doing some videos with basketball trainers and guys that do workouts and trainers around Rockford because we always get asked, where should I go? So I
yeah.
started to do a few of these videos while I was kind of down and out with COVID and bronchitis for a little bit, and super excited to get you on the line.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Um, so most recently, I don't know if you knew this, but obviously I'm a pretty big guy, overweight a little bit. And I've always listened to your stuff, come to a couple, open houses that you have, and you always talk about fitness, and you always tell your story about how you lost a bunch of weight. But probably over the last 30, 40 days, I'm down 25 pounds. So I went under 300, which was the first time in a long time for me, eating a little bit better, plant-based diets and stuff like that. So I
Way to
feel
go,
great.
man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I know you kind of always told your story about you being just a little stockier, but maybe could you lead some people off? Obviously, this is Justin Kegley from Movement Fitness, but tell us why you got into what you're doing nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So here's the deal. I played sports growing up. I loved everything about sports: football, basketball, baseball. I did
Yep.
the whole deal. Played college football. And then as I progressed and got older, got into powerlifting and bodybuilding and all this stuff, right? So
Yeah.
that's it. And then you just get older. And then it was like, well, for a little bit, it was cool. I put on some weight because I was supposed to, or I wanted to.
Right.
And then let's see, about my senior year of college, I was, interning. I was president of a student organization,
Sure.
18-hour class load. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm getting sick. I'm like trying to do it all. And
Yeah.
so, something had to go. And at that point, it was working out because I'm like, well, I'm on my way to the real world and jobs and
Yeah.
stuff. So I got to do that. And so I did that and then kind of got into corporate America. I went in for a couple years. And, after about 3-4 years of doing that, I found myself, I was about 300 pounds. All
Sure.
right. So ended up, I was a little more than stocky, but it was just, it was something that was, you just got into a rhythm and pattern of life. And that's the
Yeah.
way it was. And, unfortunately for me at that point, I had a family and that was great. That was not the unfortunate part. The fortunate, I had them, but I was unfortunate just in this pattern of like, I'm just doing life. Right. And
Right.
so get up, go to work, had no real like inspiration, motivation, all that kind of stuff. And then I had my first son and realized about 6 months in that I was going to be the guy that was going to be on the couch, that was going to be too tired. I wasn't going to be able to play with him, show him how to play basketball, baseball, do the stuff, all those things. And I got about 6 months in. I'm like, that's not me. I can't do it. And so that started my journey. And, really the next 6 months, I lost 50 pounds. Over the next 2 years, I ended up losing a total of 100.
Yep.
I maintained probably about 70 pounds of that down just because that's a good natural position for me to be in. But that was the thing that catapulted me onto that. And then it got me back on this pattern of going, you know what? I want to do something different with my life. And it ended up eventually leading me to where I'm at now and getting out of corporate America and opening Movement Fitness.
That's awesome. So when you originally opened Movement, did you move into the location that you're at right there by I guess Murphy's and Walmart out there? Is that the first location you had and you just jumped right into that, or did you start training prior to jumping into that location?
Yeah, so I started training people. I was started as a personal trainer in 2001. So
Okay.
in between my college, like all the stuff, I was training people at Gold's Gym, just a corporate box gym. And so I did that for a while. And then, I was like, I got to get the real job. So, so I did that. And then along the way, probably about 2013, 14, I started training people in my house and then at just various other places.
Sure.
And so that wasn't formally Movement Fitness, but obviously that was me and working through that to figure out what the path was.
Sure.
And as along the way, I met some great people, and I met one of our partners, who is Dave Black, who was the owner of ORS, and so orthopedic rehab specialist. And Dave's a great guy, great dude, and just believed in the vision, and came along and partnered with us and helped open up movement. So, what you see here is just a combination of a lot of hard work, and then having people believe in what we do, and that's where we started.
That's sweet. For those that don't know, can you just describe kind of where you're located exactly?
Yeah, so we are just south of State Street on Perryville. So 580 South Perryville Road. We're right in front of Sam's Club. So Murphy's Pub, Plato's Closet. There's a strip mall right in front of Sam's, and we are right on Perryville Road.
So when you talk about your inspiration to get off the couch, that makes a lot of sense to me, because in the last couple months, I've always admired you in regards to being just a fit guy.
Yeah.
And I was kind of that fat guy on the sideline that would always like listen to you or watch you and look at you. And it's like, well, that guy did it, I probably could too.
Yeah.
So as much as maybe I haven't been in your gym, you've certainly been an inspiration to me. So I appreciate that a ton.
Oh, good. Thanks,
if you could explain a little bit in regards to what type of gym you are, what do you guys do? Do you guys typically, I mean, is it a bench press gym, an incline gym? Is it obviously in the name Movement Fitness, it kind of describes it, but could you explain that just a little bit further?
Absolutely. So here's what we are. We're a coaching-based facility. So we believe that everybody moves differently. And so what we want to do is we want to create a place that we make sure that we help people to build confidence, to become resilient, but we also want them to have performance, to maximize their abilities, whatever that is. So we work with athletes starting at age 10, working all the way up to college age, and into professionals. And we also work with adults. So our adult population, we are a semi-private or private personal training facility. Right. So everything we do is designed to build a program specific to the person that walks in the door based off of their goals, how they move, what they want to achieve, all that stuff. So our goal is to build a plan and then walk through it with them. And so we do that, like I said, either one-on-one or we do it in a small group setting, but you still have your own plan. So that's kind of the deal there. And for our athletes, we work, we are an athletic performance facility, and that's a large portion of what we do.
Sure. I was flipping through your videos on Facebook, and I always catch them and watch them as they come through, but I was flipping through right before I hopped on here. And I saw your personal record board, and I heard your voice in the background, and you sounded pretty stoked for some young girl that beat her personal record. Can you talk about what that means to you?
Oh man. So here's the deal. Traditionally, gyms and places that work with athletes, you have your board, right? So the big board is, bench press, deadlift, squat, and those type of things. And we think they're great. We want our kids to be strong. So we work to help strengthen kids. But when I think of what we do, the biggest thing for a guy like me is to be able to take an athlete, help them fulfill their potential by not getting hurt and then maximizing their performance, but give them back to a coach like you and say, here you go. I just gave you a cup that can take more water, right? So it has more capacity to do more. So when we look at what matters in performance, it's number one, don't get hurt. The best ability is availability. Number two is how do we maximize their performance? And that means sprinting and vertical jump. When we think of power, that's what translates onto the field or court, no matter what sport it is.
Sure.
I mean, rowing is in the water is literally the only sport that, both feet are planted in a boat. Sure. Everything else is how do we help them maximize that? And when they sprint, they could develop more power. And there's not one sport that doesn't benefit from being faster. And so we want to measure that. So we measure that success over time because number one, we want to see how they progress, but we also want them to build confidence because in reality, what we do on the training room floor is just a way to show them what they're truly capable of.
Sure.
Because whether it's on the court or whether it's in the classroom or whether it's with their friends, they're going to come up against difficulties. They're going to struggle. They're going to fail at something. And what we want to do is to show them, you've already done hard things. You can overcome that. And we want to build that mental resilience to help them to overcome any barrier that comes in front of them along the way. And that's just one way that we do that.
Sure. Expand on I'm going to put two questions at you together.
Sure.
The first one is I bumped into a coach as we were leaving, and his son was at practice tonight for our basketball program. But he says, "Hey, we're still at movement for 4 days a week." And I've seen their kids have so much success with you over the last few years. And there's a lot of parents that just rave to me, obviously, about you and your wife and your program.
Yeah.
But can you talk to us just about, like, does it have to be a 4-day week kid, or is it a 2-day week? Is it boys and girls? I know you said individualized programs. Is it track and field? Is it basketball? Is it football? Obviously it's just becoming a better athlete, but if you could expand on just maybe all of that, that'd be helpful.
Great questions. So here's the thing. We are not a skill-based organization. So my goal is we don't put, the ball in somebody's hand and have them do something. We're not working on skills. I just want to make sure that we help to develop the athlete. And so our goal is to do that. Now, we do that in a couple of different ways. We have people that come in and they come here 2 days a week, 3, and some come to 4. So that depends on, what they're doing and what their goals are and all of that. But you don't have to come 4 days a week. It depends on where you're at. We also, it varies on if you're in season, if you're out of season. We've had a lot of people that with COVID, they've been coming. It's easy to come 4 days a week because they weren't doing anything else. So that makes a huge difference. We became their sport. But ultimately, we want to put them back on the field or court. So all we want to do is we have availability for 2, 3, 4 days a week. So that way it fits your schedule.
Sure.
We believe that, man, if someone comes in and is consistently putting in the effort, they're going to see progress. So it just depends on what works for each person. And then when you talk about like different sports, I said it before a little bit, but it's about the athlete. We have athletes we've worked with athletes that go all the way up to professional football, to soccer, to, D1 basketball, all of that. We've had all across the board, track and field, hockey. And so all of it comes back to they need to be faster and they need to be more powerful and they need to not get hurt. And all of those things are the things that we work on.
Do you work with adults as well?
Absolutely.
So if obviously an adult, 40 some, 50 some, whatever it might be, they just want to get in better shape. They want to become an athlete. They could join your gym just like any other, 20-year-old kid or whatever it might be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's, like I said, that's the individualized portion of that. That's where we break it down and we literally take them through a movement assessment and figure out where they're at. Because here's the deal. When you get into the more experienced athletes, someone that's, 40 plus like myself, you get into those areas. I mean, look, long-term, we want to stay healthy. Yeah. You want to lose weight or do whatever the thing is that you want to do. But if you get hurt, nothing else really matters. If you can't move well, life stinks. So we want to move well first, hence the name movement, as a big part of what we do. But for sure, we have different segments. So obviously our athletic performance and what we do for young athletes is different than what we do for adults. And those are different, times and segments and all that, but absolutely.
What type of personal records do you put out there?
All kinds. I mean, we've got kids that are running flying 10s at, 1.12. I mean, they're really fast. We've got our current male high school vertical jump is 34 for a high school kid. We've got our current female record is 32.6 for a high school female athlete. So we track it all the way down into, we've got junior high kids with a 27-inch vertical and we have some really talented kids that come in and just put in the work and we just get to guide them and show them how to get better. And that's what makes it really fun.
So most recently, December I had bronchitis. October I had some COVID, and I think I'm the model guy that was 320 pounds that COVID does hit harder.
Yeah.
I'm the prototypical example. So all those things are true. And I think the only thing that I didn't lose was my taste and my smell.
Okay.
But in the middle of December, I just started eating better. I had a yogurt for breakfast and some supplements and vitamins. And now I'm really excited to put greens in my stomach during lunch. And then I just eat whatever my wife cooks at night.
Yeah.
But I know you're huge into like the nutrition stuff too.
Sure.
If there's young kids out there, what are just a couple, few points that say, hey, kids just need to do this? When I left my team tonight, I had a practice and I just said, hey, just replace one bad meal with a good salad. I'm not telling you how to change you. I'm not a nutritionist. I
Right.
don't understand this, but it's working for me.
For sure.
Can you give some feedback in regards to somebody that's a little bit more adept to it than I am?
Yeah, well, 100%. So I love actually what you're doing, because here's the problem that we struggle with in America, I firmly believe, is the everything changes tomorrow diet, or the New Year's diet, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, well, at some point, I'm going to change everything. And then you go through this miserable 5 days of like, I eat nothing but salad and I'm sad, or, whatever. And you go, I'm trying to do everything right. And you work out like uber hard or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
And so then, you see like, I lost a pound on the scale, and you're like, well, that stinks. That was a lot of effort and that's all I got. And then it just kind of goes downhill.
Sure.
Right. So the biggest thing that we recommend is, how do you make small but sustainable changes?
Yep.
When I think of most people, this goes for both athletes and adults in America. If they did one thing, if they started one thing, it would start with eat a great breakfast. I know there are people that do intermittent fasting and have different styles, and that's fine. I totally get it. But that works for a certain subset of the population.
Sure.
Most people, right, wake up in the morning and they don't eat breakfast, not because they have a specific reason why, but because they're not intentional about what they're doing with their day. So they either wake up late, or they're running out of the house, or, whatever the case is, or they're not going, hey, this thing, what I'm eating now is going to fuel me later on. So rather than having that triple venti espresso macchiato thing later on, because I need to wake up, I could have a breakfast and that'll give me the actual energy, rather than that fake stimulus of a caffeine. I don't hate caffeine, but
Right.
the over caffeination, right? So I think that's the biggest thing to start with, is making sure you look at your breakfast and go, look, how do you get something that is filled with protein, some good fats, and some healthy carbohydrates, right? Not the traditional, bagels or whatever the case may be for breakfast. I think that in and of itself, if you started off that way, you're going to have success. Because here's the other deal. As you're finding, we just talked about, I have a yogurt here, now I'm putting some greens in there. As you go, when you start doing good things, it's hard. You have to actually process like, oh, now I'm going to eat crappy food. I'm going to eat pizza. I'm going to eat a burger. I'm going to waste that breakfast and the workout I had already. Like, I'm going to waste that. Like, that it becomes a thought in your head. And so I firmly believe that breakfast is a huge part of starting your day and having energy, and making sure that you stay within the goals, whatever you have, whatever you want nutritionally.
Sure. Absolutely. So one of the things that I've done just to try to change some of the habits is, about 10, 15 years ago, well, 15 years ago, I guess, I stopped drinking overall.
Yeah.
Alcohol. So,
yeah.
but then my vice for the last 15 years has been Coca-Cola. So I've literally over the last probably 10, 15 years, I've had probably on average 5 or 6 pops a day.
Yeah.
And I feel good for a minute. And then I have this up and down all day long. And I thought that was the only answer until probably the last 30 days, where I probably felt better than I have in my entire life. But I know you're a proponent certainly of water. Is there a certain amount of water kids should have per day? There you go. Should obviously eliminating pop. Is there any other good, simple drinks? Are you a Nazi against pop for kids?
Here's what I think. The problem comes in, I think right now we have so much information in our culture, right?
Yeah.
But what we often do with kids nutritionally, sometimes a lot of times with sports, it doesn't matter, with grades, we expect them to know information, right? So we don't take the time to go, often I've got to educate this kid on a choice.
Sure.
So am I, when we talk about nutrition with our athletes, I am never going to get to the thought or the point where I'm like, okay, well, you're going to eat 5 meals a day or 4 meals a day, and it's going to be 2 salads and fish and blah, blah, blah. And go, hey, by the way, never eat pizza. Like, it's
Right.
not realistic. You're setting everyone up for failure. So when we walk them through and have a conversation with them about what we're doing, I think education is the key. So if we talk to them, yeah, I don't want them to put Coke in or Coca-Cola in their body or whatever, because I think it's sludge. And especially for an athlete, right? They're not fueling themselves for success. Now, on the back end, what we know and what I've seen with lots of friends that I've played football with and basketball is when you're a kid, you are just burning calories like crazy, right? Just standing, let alone the fact that you're practicing 3 hours a day and you're doing all the other stuff, right? So it's easy to keep the weight off. You're taking stuff in just to keep weight on. So, but then what happens all of a sudden when that senior year's over or college is over, and then you're like, well, I don't need to run anymore. I don't need to work out anymore. And then all of a sudden, bam, you're like, where did this 25 pounds come from?
Right.
You didn't change anything nutritionally, and you didn't understand what it meant to eat well. And so I think the hard part is as parents, we get tripped up because we're like, I don't know what I should do. And I look at my kid's diet and it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Sure.
So I think for kids, that's a big part of it is educating them, walking them through, making good choices and decisions. And I mean, quite honestly, if you can get them to not drink like calorie filled drinks, that would be a massive win for them for life, I believe. But
Sure. Did you get a chance to watch Game Changers on Netflix?
I haven't, and I'm choosing not to. I'm not a big fan of the research and the information. I've done a lot of reading around the topic. I'm not anti, plant-based diet. I think that's really good for a lot of people. I do not think it is wise for athletes. I think they have cherry picked some data based off of the research that I've done around the movie. And, I just don't believe that that's the best way to fuel an athlete's body. But unless there's a specific reason you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess because it's kind of going on that topic, I'm not a plant-based, I'm not vegan or anything along those lines, but I've tried to eat a little bit better. When my wife cooks chicken or steak, I eat it. But we were going through Woodman's. I was going through Woodman's a couple of weeks ago, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to eat more plants. My one buddy's a vegan. Then I bumped into another guy who's a great guy. He's a gym guy, and he's a meat guy. What's the right answer? And I think you alluded to it before. It's like there's so many different fad diets between intermittent fasting and plant-based. Like what do you eat? What do you what should we eat?
For sure. So here's what I'll tell you. When I break down the diet, I think that number one, there's a difference clearly in athlete and adult.
Yep.
And so when I speak to athletes, I will say this. Number one, I don't think most athletes get enough protein. Sure. Right. So I think that's something that we need to up because it's easy to get carbs. It's easy to put calories in the body. But there's often not enough protein. So I'm a big fan of that. I don't think we need to overload them. I don't think it's like tons and tons of protein, but it's a matter of going, how do you get 20, 30 grams of protein throughout a couple meals throughout the course of the day?
Sure.
Because protein is one of those things that you can't store up like, carbs through glycogen. You can't store that and then, fat and then have that energy ready for later. You can't do that. Like, you need to replace the protein so that way it rebuilds muscle and all that stuff when we get done with workouts, especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So number one there, I think it's very simple. When we look at making sure when you have an athlete, we eat breakfast, lunch, something before you go to training. So something means like some kind of, yogurt with some fruit, something like that before you go. Afterwards, we always have our 3 and 30, which is a protein, a carb, and some kind of water, something to rehydrate yourself.
Okay.
That's huge. And then a dinner. So
Okay.
when you look at that, you go very simply break it down and go, all right, I'm going to have something, whether, so if we're eating, meat, right? You go like, I would prefer something that has the less legs, the better, the healthier, right? So
Sure.
cows, 4 legs, right? Chicken, turkey, 2, fish, 0, right? So when you think of that, that's the easy scale of how you get to that.
Did you say the less legs, the better?
The less legs, the healthier.
Okay. The healthier, got it.
Okay. So that's, that's kind of the idea there. When I think of adults, here's the research there's all over the place. So you could find anything to support whatever you want to do, right? You want to eat 3 meals a day, you want to eat 6 meals a day, you want to go keto, you want to go whatever, right? Like paleo, do you want to, all that stuff. I just think that a lot of that is so difficult to keep up. Any of the diets will work because they all have one thing in common. They are caloric deficits, right? You burn more calories than you consume. That's really it, right? If you want to get specific and you're getting into bodybuilding stuff, then you can really break down like, oh, I need these percentages or whatever in macros and all that kind of stuff. But really, if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to eat healthier. I want to lose a couple pounds and feel better about myself. Start off by going, don't do a massive reduction. Most people try, when they're losing weight, they go, well, I'm, eating 3,000 calories a day. I'm going to eat 1,000. And then you're like, dude, that's a big shift and you're going to be miserable. So is everybody around you. And it's going to take a Herculean effort to keep moving forward. So the best diet is the one you're going to stick to.
Sure. So I know we've kind of gone off a little bit more on diets.
Yeah.
That's just, I guess, me partially selfishly, but I think it's important for kids because I think my kids eat terribly. And I think spreading that message and making sure that people know that obviously you're a well-rounded guy, you're a well-rounded gym, and you want to make better athletes. So kids need to eat better.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us just about some of the daily stuff that you guys do in regards to your gym, your activity, the exercises that you do to make kids just better athletes?
For sure. I would love to hit it. Can I go back 1 second to nutrition?
Yeah.
So here's the challenge. And speaking about athletes, one of the things that, we hear things about, from a broader perspective, you take like people talk about millennials and how they act, and we talk about different generations and how they act. And we always have to remember, like, we have to teach the next generation. So if you're a parent and you have an athlete, I'm going to say this as lovingly as I can, but absolutely mean it. The way your kid eats is your fault.
Sure.
90% of the time.
My fault. Yep. I get it.
They don't go to the grocery store. They're not the ones, until they can turn 16, they're not the ones that are going through the drive-through. And I get it. Life happens. I'm not saying don't ever.
Yeah.
But make sure that if you're going to, whatever they're doing, they're going to mirror you at some point, and that's going to become their perception. So that's just part of that. There are plenty of resources out there. But just, I love you, parents. I'm one of you. I'm with you. So I have 3 boys of my own. So
most recently I heard, just listening to, a lot of different people about diet and nutrition, that it's best to probably just shop on the outside aisles and leave the inside aisles alone.
For sure. Look, I still think they're kids, so I do understand having some of that, but
right.
I do. But I think one of the things is that we get off with, we had a conversation with some people about this the other day, is we have gotten into this habit of a simple thing is rewarding our kids after we have an event, right? So we reward them with ice cream. You had a good game, Jimmy. Let's go get some ice cream. You had a bad game, Jimmy. Let's go get some ice cream.
Right.
And so the hard part is I don't want to take away those experiences because I think they're valuable when you do that, when you bond and have that time. But we also are creating a pattern and a habit long-term that someone's going to go, I had a bad day. you know what? I'm going to go get an ice cream.
Right.
I'm going to go get a whatever.
Yeah.
I deserve, McDonald's today. And
Sure.
so it's something that we always have to pull back and think in the long term. Um, that's really how are we setting them up in patterns and making decisions in life?
Absolutely.
So all that go back to your other
No,
question.
that was good. That was good. That was good. I appreciate it. It's kind of been my thing for the last 30 days, and
Yeah.
I can't say that that's been like that the last 47 years of my life.
Well, I'll tell you this. I make an effort. We are busy, but one of the things that I do is I'm home 3 days a week in the morning.
Yeah.
The other days I'm here early, and I literally make my kids breakfast every morning when I'm home.
Sure.
And that is, I make them I make them, generally it's eggs, bacon, and some toast, right? So when you
Yeah.
look at that, I want to provide that for them. We also have some kind of, try to put in like red. So fruits and vegetable drink that, is an easy way to get them to get some extra fruits and vegetables in their body. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than not eating any of it, right? So
Sure.
that's just a simple thing, trying to establish a pattern in their lives. But also from a nutritional perspective, I'll tell you this. 80% of what we do and how we grow, a lot of people, we think about how we grow and all that, especially vertically. 80% of that is dictated by genetics. 20% is dictated by our nutrition. So when you have a kid, if that's like eating crappy and you want to like needle it in on them, you go, as a basketball player, you want an extra inch or two, you could
Right.
potentially do that. I can't make that guarantee, but there is a plenty enough research out there to say, you know what, if you eat well, and especially throughout those years where you're growing throughout puberty or whatever, and you're eating
Sure.
well, that could just totally accelerate the process and help get you an extra inch, two, whatever, and maximize your potential. So
For sure.
there you go.
Uh, Justin Kegley, Movement Fitness. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what's that low hanging fruit that's out there to help expand your business? Is it franchising your model? Is it expanding to another gym? Is it getting into a new realm of athletes? What is that? What's that next step for you? Or hey, if there's somebody out there, what is that particular group that you want to be a part of that maybe you don't have as much of right now, or a new program you're running?
Yeah.
What's out there in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
For sure. So, number one, when number one right now is we want to continue to expand, our program of where we're at and reaching people here. So I am kind of bridging the gap between the question you just asked of our day-to-day activities and all that versus where we're at now. I think of long-term athletic development. I want the long-term kid of how do we continue to build someone
Sure.
that's willing to learn and grow, right? When I think of what is ahead in 5 to 10 years, I want to be able to provide a facility that not only does athletic performance in here, but we have the ability to help athletes in every capacity, from when you talk about like physical therapy, to be able to branch all of those needs, because we want to make sure that our kids have the best opportunity to achieve their goals, because it's hard to go to college and play basketball and to achieve your
Sure.
dream and all that. We want to give them every opportunity to do it, but then again, they're going to have to work for it. So
Sure.
we foresee that as a facility expansion in the coming years. Our athletic performance program right now has grown so much over the past year that we continue to develop. So we're super excited about that. Long term, I continue to dig into athletes. So I've had the fortune to work over the last year with Nate Weeding, who went on to the
Yeah.
NFL with the Giants and the Browns. Had the opportunity to work there. I have lots of college athletes that we're working with, so that's always a pleasure. One of the things that is unique about our facility, though, Coach, is that we are about, depending on the week or the month, we're probably between 60 and 65% female athletes. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in, because we still feel the female athlete market is underserved, right? And that is an area where there is still a significant amount of injury. Female athletes are up to 9 times more likely to tear their ACL than a male
Yeah.
athlete. And so This year, we have launched our Unshakable Female Athlete program to not only help them from a physical perspective, but to also help them to grow mentally, emotionally, and also to help them create the habits that are going to make them sustainable for success. So that's a big part of where we are and continue to grow. But we work with everybody. I've got 13-year-old boys that I'm working with, and we've got college-age ladies that we're working with. So we're all over the board, and we love it.
So hopefully this reaches a bunch of people, and we'll certainly shoot it out to our email list along with social media blasts, everything along those lines.
Yeah, thanks.
But if somebody says, "Hey, I'm done listening to Coach Warner, and I just want to talk to Coach Kegley," how do they contact you? What's the best approach to reach out to you?
For sure. So I, number one, probably if you want to communicate about opportunities, Justin at movementfitnessrockford.com. If you wanted to reach out to do that, you can reach me 815-374-3200. So that's our direct contact here. On social media, if you're like, hey, I don't know who this guy is and I want to see it, we got two places you can go. Well, three actually, but Movement 815 on Instagram.
Yep.
Or Coach Keg on Instagram, and you can see me. I put a lot of stuff out there, a lot of content, just trying to help people understand what it is we do, why, and how we can help athletes, because that's the thing we specialize in, speed and power, and that's what we want to do.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. You're certainly a wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate the inspiration over the years, and looking at your story, certainly motivating as well. So I appreciate your time a ton.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. You're a smart dude, and I know my son Riley had a chance to play for you and really enjoyed that. Yeah. And so that's just good. But I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to talking more.
Yeah, I got one last thing, and this kind of goes to some basketball parents, but over the years through, I guess, Rockford Elite, we've had the opportunity to continually grow, and we haven't, tried to grow exponentially. We just want to have good coaches and a good experience for kids. But sometimes we have teams at certain age levels that play year round, right? But as a basketball coach, there's times where I've told families, and I guess I'm telling them again now, stop playing games, right? There's a lot of kids that have played for me through the years, and they continually play the sport that's in season, and they're hell of basketball players. They're still very good. They haven't lost their skill. And those are kids that I've just had personal experience with. And there's many times where I turn around, I've told several parents that stop playing basketball, stop playing games, and go hit up guys like Justin over at Movement Fitness. And if you did nothing else for the next 6 months, you will be a better basketball player if you just do that. And sometimes it sinks in, but a lot of times it doesn't. Give me just a quick little 1 minute thing in regards to just becoming, I'm preaching to the choir, but here I am, a basketball coach telling kids not to play basketball, and I believe it,
Absolutely.
Expand on that just a little bit.
Here's the deal. If you're going to play year-round sport, you're going to increase your likelihood of getting injured or burnt out. Yeah. Because you can't continue to grow at an exponential pattern, right? And so for us, we are, for a lot of kids, we are the second sport, but we totally encourage kids to get outside that realm and play more sports, because I think you're right. You go back, if you think about what we have now, Coach, we have more players and less athletes. Sure. Right? We have less kids that could go from, here to, from basketball to baseball to football to whatever.
Sure.
And so there are less of them. But there are also continues to be this increased risk, this increases of injuries. And you see these kids, they're not doing anything other than these same patterns that they do in the sport that they're playing. They don't get outside. They're not playing with their friends, which we should be just go play. And that's not organized stuff. So I am a massive proponent of making sure that you get into another sport or find a way to break the pattern of what you're currently doing?
Absolutely. I knew I'd have some backup right when I brought that up. So I appreciate it a ton. So hey, I appreciate your time and thanks so much. And as always, you got my number. You can hit me up wherever, and hopefully, we'll share this with as many people as possible, and they'll realize that you're the smartest guy in this interview. So I appreciate it.
Oh man, well, I appreciate it, Coach. Thanks for having me on, man.
Have a good one, buddy.
All right, thanks. Be great today. We'll see you.
Bye bye.